My guest today on Great Dane Nation is an old friend and a dear friend, and certainly an advocate for me during my Hall of Fame run, trying to get into the Canton, Ohio. And I'm grateful to him for his push and his endorsement, which was important in that process. And you're looking at a new Sean Payton, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to ask him here in a second. He was certainly a successful NFL coach. He won more games as a Saints coach. He took the Saints to the Super Bowl. He's known as one of the great offensive play callers in the history of the game. And eventually, I think he'll, if he goes back to coaching and has a little more success, I think we'll find him in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. So it's a pleasure to welcome my friend Sean Payton to Great Dane Nation. Sean, are you a different man now that you're retired? I mean, let's face it, you're never retired. You're once a ball coach, always a ball coach. How do you feel different today than you did,
I would say
standing on the sideline?
You transitioned away, which is a little bit more difficult than normal because we're so itinerary driven, we're so calendar driven, you remember, like, as a player, how I'm sure you got your off-season program, your mini camp schedule, then you got your training camp report day, and there were just a lot of things laid out. And then when you stop, you got a calendar and you're filling in your own calendar, kind of, and
that's dangerous, man.
Yeah, it's just different. So I was just saying earlier, I'm in the midst of selling a big house here in New Orleans and then buying a condo in New Orleans, and kind of transitioning, doing that. You have furniture and storage, and but I would say that's the big thing is not it's filling up your time and being efficient, and then getting a chance to travel a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought when I retired 15 years ago from football, I thought, oh, I'm gonna play golf every day, and that's not the case. That wasn't for me anyway. I think and when every day's Saturday, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you got to make some sense of it, and you have to, because football gave us that structure that you just alluded to a second ago. That structure, right? We're creatures of habits. We like structure. We yearn for it.
Yeah, agreed.
And when whether it's ripped away or voluntarily, you remove yourself from it. What do you replace it with? So my question is to you: what was the one thing that you were looking forward to, besides sleeping in, maybe, when you stepped away? What was there one thing where you go, man, I cannot wait to do this because I haven't been able to do that?
Yeah, I would say it would be travel and spend spend more time doing the things you enjoy.
Yeah.
So the hard lines are gone relative to, well, we got to be back by those. You can be a little bit more spontaneous, and it allows me a chance to see my son or daughter in times of the year that I normally might not be able to. My son's a junior at TCU, and my daughter's living out west, graduated, and working. And each of them are in different stages of their lives, and so that flexibility is nice. The ability to fly over and see him at school or go out west.
Yes.
Because there are certain times of the year, as that with the football calendar, that you're just it's draft, or it's mini camp, or the start of training camp. Those take chunks away from your schedule.
Well, you mentioned travel. So what was the first place you went to? Say, I'm going here. This is where I'm,
Oh, we try to get down to Mexico once a year, because you're going to have good weather at Cabo.
Yes.
I was married there, and so that would be one place.
Yeah.
My wife's graduating this May from nurse practitioner school, so we're going to take a trip to St. Bart's after that.
Nice. You might see David Letterman down there. He's got a place, I think.
He does?
St. Bart's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look for a big beard.
yeah, those are things you look forward to. And then we'll be out in California again to see my daughter. And so it's been good though. You know, it's once you get past that transition for maybe those first couple of weeks, it's been good.
We talked about it, and you've talked about it. I listened to your whole press conference when you decided to step away, and you told us in great detail, you know, the process you went through and how you got to that place. But just maybe cliff noted for us, for our listeners again, what it was that brought you to the realization that you wanted to step away, at least temporarily, from football and take a break.
Yeah. Look, I think I think it is a process. I think it's, you know, you come to training camp every year, and it's the excitement of the new season, but there's also that pressure, that strain of, you know, once you report, you know, it's a good 6 months, you know, from whenever you get started, end of July, early August, you're there, and now you get into that routine. And so I think it's something that has stages to it throughout the season. And at least I felt that way. And when the season ended, it was something I spent a lot of time on with thought, and you know, we all take a vacation after the year. The coaches, they've been really working hard. Players, you know, get away, and I did the same, and felt the same way coming back, and that was, you know, leaning towards just stepping away and taking some time away. And so anytime you do something like that, when you've been somewhere 16 years, it's significant.
Oh,
and you trust your gut.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. I thought it was going to be easier to step away after 25 years, and really for the next year and a half, I spent walloping in self-pity. You know, unfortunately, it took too long for me to get on with it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's different for a player, you know, or a coach, but it was that lack of structure that really crushed me. You know, that and the adrenaline. You know, the lights and that feeling of having the moment.
Yeah.
I'm sure as a coach, you have certain moments on the sideline where you go, man, this is my moment. Yeah, they're playing, but this is the moment that we're going to win the game.
I think to some degree, I think to some degree, you get that sense of being institutionalized where
it's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Well, there's a character in Shawshank, you know.
Great movie. Oh.
And he, 70, 80 years old, hits his day or release date, and all he's known has been his prison life. And so he didn't know what to do or how to do it. Yeah. And so he tried to, you know, that he wanted to come back to prison. So
yeah,
but I would agree with you. I think though there are stages to this. You know, the draft was always an exciting time of the year because you're doing something entirely different, and you know how important it is for personnel to be right with your team. And so that's a stage. You know, that they're a week away from that draft, and then, you know, you get into the mini camp and training camps, and some of those things you don't miss maybe, and then when the season. Yeah. So look, I look forward to still staying involved with it though, with a studio position, and it that's probably like 4 days away from being official, but
sweet.
But that'll be nice to weekly and kind of for the course of the season stay very involved with the game that, you know.
So that puts the kibosh on you buying a condo in South Beach, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's not happening. I'm worried about the condo in New Orleans right here today. I close on a condo today in New Orleans.
How does that make you feel when all, rumors and innuendo and Sean Payton and Tom Brady, and there's a deal going where Sean's gonna, Brady's gonna be the minority owner with Ross down there, and then you have the Rooney Rule and the lawsuit, and that puts the whole, screeching halt on that theory. And Sean's gonna be the head coach, but the Rooney Rule, and we have, I'm following this on the sideline, having been in the game for a while. I go, yeah, okay, this is it's constructed, but maybe there's some truth to it. Did you ever think were you ever I've heard your statements and you knew nothing about it. That's your official statement. That's still your statement, right?
Yeah. So look, I've read and seen parts of the story, and evidently there was someone from Miami that reached out to the Saints relative to me coaching. There has to be a permission, obviously compensation. I still have,
sure,
years left on a contract, but that was the good news is they're still talking about you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
But that was, at times, sometimes you're like removed from the process, but then you hear about something like that was,
yeah,
that entailed a position for you. But that was the only thing, that I had heard and really heard of. I never heard from anyone. So look, I get it. Every year there's pieces, people look at teams, and so if Miami was putting in a request and the Saints denied it, I don't think that actually happened. After now talking to Mickey, I think it was, a lot of times you ask someone, hey, do you think if we've asked for permission, we'll be able to, and the intermediary says no, and then you save everyone a bunch of trouble by not, putting a formal request in.
Yeah.
But that was fine. That there's a day when they stop talking about you, period.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right. So
that can be a good thing too, Sean. That can be a good thing. I mean, because that just means that you've entered another stage in life, and they're gonna talk about you in a different way.
Yeah, that's a great point. So
I've come to learn that. That's my story. I'm sticking to that story. Nobody's talking about me kicking field goals anymore. I can tell you that, but that's okay. I can talk about it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which is fun. So you're going to television, either Fox or Amazon. I've heard. And it doesn't matter where, but as long as you're happy, I think you'll do a great job. I think it'll be fun to listen to you in the studio. I look forward to that. Personally, I don't see you there for a long time. I think you're a ball coach. So I like to play the what if, and I'm not here to upset anybody because, as you just alluded to, there's going to be compensation, and it'll be if you go somewhere else besides the Saints, there'll be a trade. There'll be a trade and compensation a lot, I would think, first round pick, second round pick. Let's just play what if in 2023. There's a lot of room, again, rumors, innuendo. I know your history with the Dallas Cowboys. So is that a place you could see yourself? And I don't want to disrespect anybody over there, but is that so far out there? I haven't even given it a thought, but would you entertain it?
No, honestly, two things. It is something that's way out there. And I know, I think there are obvious reasons people would bring up that team, and a lot of it has to do with I just used to work there, and I have a good relationship with Jerry and his family and that team. But outside of that, I think if that opportunity someday comes where I'm coaching in the NFL again, I don't see it or have a preconceived team in mind. And the Dallas thing, I can't. There's nothing to combat or say, well, look, for 16 years in New Orleans, it came up every year. Oh, he's gonna be someone who goes back. And I think it's not challenging, but that's difficult for Mike as well, because Mike's winning games down there, Mike McCarthy, and he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
and so I
you don't want to disrespect somebody that's
and
trying to do a job there.
I think there the unique thing about this league, there are 32 teams. Everyone knows that. I think the everyday fan would feel like every one of these teams is kind of run the same way. They have the same rules relative to the league.
Mhm.
But outside of that, they're all 32 independent organizations that really run and function differently depending on the club you're at. And so I think, building culture, finding the right fit, all of those things are paramount to success. And I'm not saying that any one team or other doesn't, but I think it's a big broader scope. And so Dallas, because I live there, I understand that and then just take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, I look, it's something that down the road, if I choose to come back and coach, great, but you want to be good at whatever you're doing. So I'm looking forward to trying to be good in the studio.
Yeah, and you will be, and you have to be invested. Let's face it, whatever we do in life, we have to be passionate and like invested and intentful about it.
Yeah,
I think
100%. I agree.
If you're not, then you can't fake it. You can fake it for a little bit. You can fool some people some of the time. Can't fool all the people all the time. That's a song, I think somebody's saying. But
yep, I agree.
So talking about hiring, and I mentioned the Brian Flores lawsuit there and the Rooney Rule. Let me get your take on how the league can move forward and do a better job with minority hiring at the head coaching level. Understanding that we're really what we all should look at is just qualifications and ability to take that job, regardless of skin color. What's your take?
Yeah, I think for years there have been different initiatives, programs. You go back to the Bill Walsh minority internship program, and what happens though over time is some of these get dated a little bit relative to, we used to get a lot of college coaches that had a chance to work training camp. Now their schedule's very similar to ours, so if you have someone, it might only be for 2 weeks instead of 2 months. I think the most important thing we can do, and I think the league is working and trying to take steps towards this, but is obviously develop at the entry level. The coaches that are with quarterbacks, coaches that are with the defensive backs, coaches that are into coordinator positions, because typically speaking, it's the coordinator positions that get promoted to become head coaches. Mm-hmm. And so paying close attention to that. I know this year they're making sure each club has an offensive position that is specific to being in the offensive room and also in the quarterback room, because that's really good with that position. You have a greater chance for success. So developing young coaches, I just think that's something that obviously we'll see improve. And I think, the other thing is it's an ownership thing, because there's good coaches. I always bring up the David Shaw, who's at Stanford, who's young and been successful. He's somebody, even if he articulates he doesn't want to come to the NFL, sometime our league has just gone out and gotten him and paid him.
Yeah.
And so the candidates are there. I think, how do we bring light to who these people are and the talents they have? I think that's ongoing.
Yeah, I hope it's exciting time for many coaches and for many prospects. Back to the Saints, and I would imagine now that you go into television that it's going to be a lot of NFL, obviously, but also maybe geared towards the Saints a little bit in the beginning, because
that'll be
because that's going to be fun for you. So why was Dennis Allen the right hire for the Saints?
Well, look, he's been with our program for, shoot, I want to say 12 or 13 of the last 16 years. And then I would say that he's done a tremendous job. You know, we're a result-oriented league, and you have to prove in a coordinator's position that you can have success with a room, and he's shown that with our defense. And so, you know, it's not something you get to have; it's something you have to earn. And I feel like I know how Mickey and the organization felt about Dennis. I know how I feel about him, and I think he was a tremendous hire.
So as the Saints sit here in late April of 2022 coming into the draft, where do you see the Saints? How do you see them positioned? What's your feelings about the club as you've been away from them now for 6 months, 5 months?
Yeah, I think well, I think there's a lot of positives, and I think there's a lot they put themselves in a position for success. Last year, you know, we won 9 games with, you know, 54 players that were 54 different starters, which was unique. With COVID, with the injuries, I think it's a good young team, and that 2017 draft was outstanding. You know, with guys like Lattimore and Ramczyk, and Marcus Williams now moved on to another team, but Kamara, then Trey Hendrickson moved on to another team. All these players in one draft class. I think the defense was outstanding last season. I know they'll look to add an offensive weapon or two, and then obviously re-signing Jameis back and getting stability at that position will be important. So look, this draft is going to be important. They have 2 picks in the first round. All of us, you and myself, will be kind of looking to see, you know, do they want to trade those 2 picks to move up, or do they want to select 2 players? You know, we'll have a chance to see that in the first night. But I think it's an exciting time for that team. And there's that culture that's present, that's necessary to win.
So if you were the head coach, put your head coaching hat on for 30 seconds here, and you're going into the draft, you're the Saints head coach. Who do you pick? Do you do what you just told me? Do you combine the picks? Do you try to trade up? Or do you try to what position is a glaring need for you with the Saints?
Yeah, I would say, look, I know they want to add a receiver. I think they're going to probably add an offensive lineman. I think they'll probably add a safety or a corner. That you're always looking at that depth, but I would definitely say they're going to look at a tackle. They're going to look at a receiver. But it's hard. You know, it's interesting. It's hard to answer some of those type of questions when you don't know the grades of the players that are in this draft. Like a lot of times, most of the time, they can pull you in a direction where you're like, we have to have this player.
Right.
And, you know, and so and you get this all the time, without knowing someone's feelings, everyone that covers the draft tries to cover it from a perspective of these are what all these players are, and yet 32 clubs don't agree. And 32 clubs have different opinions. And so when you have that, you have different roadmaps then on draft day. You know, in other words, you have different likes and that's what makes it exciting. And so when the analyst doesn't see his players selected where he has them in his mind, then he looks at it like, well, the club should have taken.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to tell someone these are the shoes I think you should wear. Right.
Yeah, if I do that to my son, he's going to look at me. He's going to the prom in pink shoes. Come on now. Just saying. If I like black shoes, he likes pink shoes. Am I telling him to wear black shoes? Heck no. And he's not telling me to wear pink.
That's right. That's right.
But, you know, so here's the follow-up question on the draft for you. Maybe I'll ask you in a different way than I initially did. When you were sitting there for all the drafts you've been through, and you've been through a bunch, did you look at only need, or did you look at best available? Because there's a big difference, or a combination of the two.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a question you get all the time. There is this talent level that we start with. And so in a lot of cases, need sits on your right shoulder throughout the off season.
Right.
You know, during free agency, during the draft, and it's a factor. It's important. But you know, and so sometimes you can trade into a position of need with grade. But let's say we're not trading at all, and the pick comes to us. We're going to probably pick what we think is most valuable. But that's the neat thing about the draft. Once you've identified or assessed value on players, then trying to get in a position to draft players that you like and that are players of need, you know, that's the perfect pick, if you will. But it's a great question, and I would say most valuable players still on the grade system is what we pay attention to. Now, need always, when you have a clump of players, you know, need factors in. Need has to be addressed. So need, we're not going to ignore need, but I think the mistake sometimes can be, you know, squeezing a player in before or after that pick. I think you can make some errors if you're not careful.
They're done all the time, the errors. I mean, and guys that you think are going to be great are busts, and guys you go, man, this guy, he wasn't even on our screen, you know, and he becomes an all-pro. Looking back at your 16 years with the Saints, can you give me one or two players that were both? In other words, not the same, but one guy, and again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but a guy that totally overpromised and underdelivered, and then one guy that underpromised and over-delivered, and got this guy. And if you just want to do one of them, not the negative, I'm fine with that. But
yeah,
I'm curious to hear your opinion on that.
It's amazing. Every year, there are players that you have visions for, and I'll give you a great example of us signing after the draft, Deonte Harris, who was undrafted.
Oh my goodness.
A return specialist, played receiver. He was at Assumption College. And so many people don't know where Assumption College is, but it's in the Northeast. And, you know, when you saw his film, it was a smaller school, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, here's a player that didn't get drafted, and he comes into your program, and within weeks, months, he's gotten acclimated, and you see his ability as a return specialist. That would clearly be a great example for a more recent example of, man, came in with, I don't want to say low expectations because his tape was exciting, but you just knew it was at a small school, but completely overperformed and, you know, had the respect of the locker room immediately. And then I think on the other side of that gambit, forget any specific players, but the ones taken in the first day, the first night, the first 25 or 30 picks, they bear that burden a little bit because, look, we're all guilty of spending 95% of our conversation about 20% of the draft, which is round one. We just discussed round one. And so obviously, I think there's a lot more pressure on the round one players.
You have a funny draft story you can share here, and I'll let you go. Do you have where you go, oh shit, we didn't mean to take him? You remember the Vikings when they didn't turn their pick in?
Yes.
And they claimed it was Baltimore that didn't turn their side of the pick in, and both sides have to turn the picks in for it to be legitimate, correct?
Yeah. So
Um,
it's
do you have
interesting.
do you have a funny one?
There's a couple. When I was in New York, and you and I were in New York together, and overlapped in our careers, but when I was in New York, um, they're very traditional organization. The draft meetings were set up such in a big room with the coaches, all the scouts, the front office. Um, it's a celebration that time of the year, meaning this is everyone's adding new players to their team, and the late Mr. Mara, Wellington Mara, had a little table in the draft room, and he had this older microphone that kind of stood in the middle of the room, and it was like an old Ed Sullivan microphone, silver metal,
I love it.
and it was right in the middle of the room. And so you and I, just like we are here, could talk in the room, and the microphone would pick up the audio, and the audio feed was obviously on the other end. Two of the Giants employees that were at the draft, so you turn it on in the morning, you make sure you have communication. Guys, can you hear us? And I don't know if listeners know this, but every team has a representative or two at the draft. I would say I get asked this question a lot. Do you go to the draft? And so no, everyone works out of their offices throughout the country and the cities their teams are in, but they send two representatives to the draft to answer. Yeah, so you're talking on the microphone, and then all of a sudden the reception goes out because it's an older machine, and there's panic in the room where you look around like, all right, who's fixing this?
Yeah.
Because right now
We're dead.
we don't have any communication.
Yeah. It's not
But
good.
that's not good. So
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of things happen. It's exciting. It's fun. And nothing surprises you. I'll end it that way.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to go out to this golf tournament here today that you were asking about. The Zurich is in town in New Orleans, and it's beautiful day today.
Go ahead.
They got a really good field of good players.
Yeah, go enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see it.
Go enjoy it. I won't keep you anymore. And I hope I can reach out maybe once you take that seat in the studio. I don't know if you're going to have a non-compete or you're not allowed to talk to other media, but I hope we can do it again. And I'll get your perspective on, how you see it from the chair. But
that sounds good.
Your perspective from the sideline was great, man. I appreciate your time, Sean.
Hey, appreciate you always, Morten. Thank you.
Bye, buddy. See you later.
All right.
Bye.